Hi, this is Kimberly. I see you've come to watch the trial of the first cousins, Christopher McNabb and Courtney Bell, who run around outside of their mobile home trailer in their underwear, trying to remember where they put their newborn. The trial against the two entered its fourth day on Friday morning, May 10th, 2019. The jury is reviewing Courtney's interview with detectives at the Newton County, Georgia Sheriff's Department. The news station 11 Alive said, "It's a salacious element in the trial of a murder of a 2-week-old that's been shared around and speculated on over social media channels, particularly our YouTube feed of the trial." So, my question to you guys is, when I'm done with this trial, should we see what kind of good comments I can find on the interwebs? There were 2 media sources allowed to film in the courtroom of this trial. One was 11 Alive, which is a large Atlanta news station, and the other was Covington News, a local newspaper in the community that Chris and Courtney are from. Apparently not a large operation, as their recording equipment did not seem to be very professional. I'm not criticizing, quite the contrary. I was able to use their footage for previous videos I did. I think it was the end of day 3 actually, where the larger outfit seemed to fall asleep and let the recording drop off. Probably someone that said, "Well, my shift is over," and then they just walked the hell out. I used to work with people like that. It would just piss me off. So, it makes sense to me, as the day I needed the newspaper's recording was day 3 when court ran past 5 o'clock. I may be naive at times, but I ain't stupid. The day before was a really long day in court. I have a sneaking suspicion that everyone woke up on day 4, whether alcohol-induced or not, with a hangover, 'cause things seemed to get off to a bumbling start. 11 Alive started filming late, and the Covington News was there filming, but they had no flipping sound. I lost a whole day trying to merge these two together, but it was all out of order with bits missing, and I just threw my hands up finally. Or this video just wasn't going to make its way out. I don't think much was missed. I could have shown the Covington News footage of the 30 to 45 minutes where prosecution was having issues with their laptop to show the interviews of Courtney, but you couldn't hear what everybody was saying in the courtroom as they talked amongst themselves while they waited on a runner to go get a new laptop from upstairs. And things got a little bit lively in the courtroom on day 4 while investigator Alexander was on the stand again. I think it was Chris's lawyer. He kept throwing up objections every third word or so, and the judge was getting frustrated. They weren't going to be done with him for a long while. Detective Alexander. He looked completely exhausted. So, in case you're a newcomer, I'm just going to review quickly a little bit about Chris McNabb and Courtney Bell and their daughter Kalia. So, Chris woke up Courtney to tell her Kalia was gone. And big sister of Kalia, whose name is Clarissa, otherwise known as Rissa, told Mommy gone. And she is 2 years old, by the way. Mommy said, "Gone?" Sissy said, "Gone." Courtney went from one end of the trailer to the other end, calling out for 15-day-old Kalia, but she wasn't answering. While she did this, Chris put clothes on over his boxers and went running out to the nearby woods to look for the baby. Courtney had a bright idea. The totes. She must be hiding in a tote and can't hear her mother calling her. Every tote was dumped and checked. Even hours later, Courtney was still convinced baby Kalia was hiding in a pile of clothes somewhere in the fucking trailer. The couple's 2-week-old daughter Kalia was later the next morning found dead not far from their trailer home. The 2 parents had been painstakingly painted by prosecutors as negligent parents who did drugs and brought seedy people around their children. So that's it in a recap. Let's get on with day 4 testimony. Please enjoy. Much love and peace. Thank you for listening.
How long a bruise has been on somebody's eye? There's just no foundation for that whatsoever.
Okay, Judge, I don't...
You need to lay a foundation about how many bruises he's seen, when he's seen them, has he had them on his own? Anything you want to do to lay a foundation to show why he can arrive at a conclusion.
I'm going to move on, Judge, because
Okay.
I think there's other evidence of that. So, Mr. Investigator Alexander, when you released...
I'm going to object to Ms. Zahn saying there's other evidence of that. If there is
Objection
evidence,
overruled. Go for it.
Investigator Alexander, did you even have a deputy escort the two back home?
We did.
Ms. Bell, I believe, at one point in the interview asked for your phone number, is that correct?
She did.
And was it your intention to stay in touch with the two of them and to continue efforts to look for the child?
Absolutely.
Were you aware were taking place while these interviews were being conducted with respect to trying to locate the child?
I was.
And what were those?
We had several different search teams. There were several different teams of specially trained canines, cadaver dogs, civilian searchers that had been searching the entire area.
And was there a command post set up somewhere?
There was.
Where was that at?
Initially, it was set up at the trailer park itself, but then it got too big and they needed a little more privacy, so they moved to High Point Baptist Church right there on Hendersonville Road.
Was the Covington Police Department even assisting in locating the child?
They were.
After several hours of searching for the child on that Saturday, October the 7th, was the search for that evening eventually called off?
It was. Due to darkness, I think around 9 o'clock, well, a little bit before 9 o'clock p.m., it was called off.
And are you aware from the investigation where K-9, what's been referred to as Deputy Elvis, traveled in the, I guess, the sniffing or the tracking that he was conducting?
Yes, I was made aware.
So Deputy Bowles informed you of that?
He did.
And where was he generally tracking?
Generally straight down the path that Mr. McNabb said he took through that logging road or power line road that we went on the other day.
Was that significant, again, in this early stages of your investigation, that the dog, Elvis, tracked the scent of the child down the same path that Mr. McNabb told you in this first interview that he had taken?
It was very significant that the dog tracked the exact steps that Mr. McNabb said he took, yes.
At some point in the interview with Mr. McNabb, were you trying to elicit information as to who could have come and kidnapped his child?
I was.
Did he offer up the name of an individual that perhaps may have wanted to retaliate against him?
He did.
And who was that individual?
He gave me the name of Matthew Lester.
Given the fact that Mr. McNabb had given you a timeline where the child was apparently okay at 9:30 and then was missing at 10:30 and that he was asleep in between that period of time, did you have any sort of opinion as to whether or not that was a feasible scenario, that Mr. Lester had come into the trailer and abducted Mr. McNabb's child?
It was not feasible. We can even narrow that timeline even smaller from 9:33 when the text came and woke him up from his dad to about 10:18 when Miss Bell said she was woken up by her daughter.
If, in your investigative experience, Mr. McNabb was to be retaliated against and he was sleeping there on the sofa, was it logical to you that Mr. McNabb wasn't himself attacked versus his 14-day-old baby?
Not logical at all. He would have been a very good target of opportunity, for lack of a better term, at that point, rather than going back into a bedroom and spiriting away an infant child.
In cases where children are abducted, have you worked any of those or seen any of those investigations here in the county?
I have.
And can you explain to the members of the jury typically what is done when there's a belief that a child has been abducted?
Sure. You may or may not have received what's called an Amber Alert on your cell phones. We get them in the middle of the night and they wake us up and want to throw our phones against the wall. These are the instances we generally get also. And a large percentage of those are familial abductions. That means either a estranged father or mother has taken the child and not returned. It's that kind of thing.
Typically when you have those types of cases, do they involve family members as suspects?
Almost all the time, yes.
Were you able to, fairly early in the investigation, make a determination in your mind as to whether or not Tim Bell should be pursued as a suspect in this investigation as abducting this child?
We were able to rule him out right away at the scene initially.
Did you learn in your investigation that Mr. McNabb or Courtney Bell had lots of money or hidden bank accounts, large stashes of drugs, or something that somebody might want to kidnap the child and ransom the child for?
Right. The best way to explain this is you saw photographs of the residence, the park where the residence is. You actually saw the residence itself, where they lived. Obviously, and through their own admission, they don't have a bunch of money. Parents were having to pay rent for them, that kind of thing. So there was really nothing to gain from some sort of abduction, ransom type kidnapping at that point.
Did you attend the autopsy the following day at the Georgia Bureau of Investigation Crime Lab?
I did on the 9th.
Okay, I'm sorry. When I said the following day, I should have been more specific. On the 9th, was Dr. Darasaw conducting the autopsy in your presence, in your immediate presence, or did you view from another room?
I was right there with her, yes, ma'am.
When this autopsy was conducted, did you see baby Kalia removed from the body bag?
I did.
Did you observe how she was unwrapped, so to speak?
I did.
And can you tell the members of the jury what you saw the child was wrapped in?
Sure. As she was removed from the book bag or the backpack, she was wrapped up in a baby light blue baby's blanket. As that was unraveled, she also had what we commonly refer to as a wife beater T-shirt, which is the A-frame muscle T-shirt that men wear sometimes.
Objection, Your Honor, to the use of the term wife beater. We've all heard it's a sleeveless T-shirt.
Go ahead.
That T-shirt was wrapped. One of the armholes was wrapped around her neck and covering her head. She also had on a purple onesie that said, "Be careful, boys, my daddy works out."
Okay. Now, the fact that those items, the blanket, the T-shirt wrapped around the child's face, and the items, did you learn that there were items also found when the child was discovered on the 8th?
Yes,
Did you actually respond to that scene?
I did.
Were you aware then that there were items that were taken out of the bag that did not go with the child and the bag that the child was found in
Yes.
to the autopsy?
Yes.
And what were those items?
One was a camouflage varsity restaurant T-shirt. One was a pair of blue and black camouflage type men's boxers, and one was a small sized light blue T-shirt, possibly a child's T-shirt.
So given the fact that these items were found with the child, did that have any, impact or make an impression upon you in this investigation?
It certainly did. We later found out that those items were all taken from that house.
Now, I'm talking about even before you found that out. At this point in time in the investigation, was it odd to you that there were these items in the bag with the child? That whoever took the child and removed the child from the home and ultimately killed the child also stuffed several items in the bag regardless of where they came from?
Right. That would have been extremely odd for somebody kidnapping, trying to rush out to grab these random items and stuff them in this bag with the child.
Now, were you able to interact with Dr. Darasaw during this autopsy in terms of asking questions, taking your own photographs, getting her opinion as to maybe what potentially could have caused this child's death?
Yes, Dr. Darasaw is very good at working with the law enforcement and the district attorney's personnel that are present during any autopsies.
And based upon what you saw with your own eyes in terms of the injuries to the child and what Dr. Darasaw told you, did you have an opinion at this point in the investigation on the morning of the 9th when you attended the autopsy as to whether or not this child was accidentally killed?
According to what we saw, my experience, Dr. Darasaw's experience, and her telling me it was definitely not an accidental death at that point.
Did Dr. Darasaw offer an opinion to you at that time as to whether or not there would be some bloody crime scene in connection with these injuries to the child?
Right. As she even said on the stand here, that was the wounds were all closed. There was some blood, and that's to be expected with injuries like that, but it was the wound to Kalia's head from the blunt force trauma that was experienced, the head still remained closed, so there was no open wounds other than the cut under her eye and the cuts in her mouth.
And did you observe what appeared to be reddish stains on the blanket that she was wrapped in?
I did.
As a result of learning that there perhaps would not be a necessarily large amount of blood wherever the child was killed with the blunt force trauma, did that impact your decision whether or not to go back to the trailer to conduct any further search for a crime scene?
It did. We made the decision at that point not to go and look for a crime scene. As you saw in the photographs, it would have been extremely difficult to locate anything new at that point. The trailer had been gone through numerous times by numerous personnel. It was searched under a search warrant. Nothing was detected that would have shown any type of violent crime scene at all.
When you were there inside of the trailer on October the 7th, did you ever observe any area that looked suspicious to you where there was blood or any evidence of an area where there perhaps was a blunt force trauma inflicted upon the child?
No, we didn't see anything at all at that point.
Did any of the deputies who had gone in before you and after you and the crime scene investigator after you point any of those areas out to you?
No.
Did the mother of the child, Cortney Bell, who was looking throughout the trailer herself and pointing out areas of interest to you, along with Mr. McNabb, did anybody find a suspicious area in the trailer that they pointed out to you?
No, nothing at all.
If, in fact, luminol testing or some sort of blood detection technique was used by crime scene investigators and some amount of blood was found in the trailer that was somehow able to be connected to Kalia McNabb, would that necessarily indicate that she was killed inside of the trailer?
I suppose it would have depended upon the amount of blood, but not necessarily, no.
Would you expect Kalia McNabb's DNA to be inside that trailer?
Absolutely.
Now, after the crime scene, after the autopsy on the 9th, I want to back up now then to the 8th. When the body was found on October the 8th, I believe you indicated that you went out to Henderson Mill.
I did.
Were you aware at that time that Mr. McNabb had a probation violation warrant for him?
Yes.
And did you make a decision at that time? Well, let me back up. Did law enforcement get a chance to notify Cortney Bell before family members did about the body being found?
I don't believe so. I believe family members notified her first.
And at some point in time, did you learn that Miss Bell, Miss Mackey, and Miss Hamby, along with little Jeremiah, Miss Mackey's child, were coming to the trailer park?
Yes, I did.
And did you learn that Mr. McNabb was in that vehicle?
Yes.
And did you learn what Mr. McNabb did in terms of exiting that vehicle?
I did.
What efforts were then taken at that point in time to apprehend Mr. McNabb?
At that point, we did know that we had an active probation warrant on Mr. McNabb, and due to his running, for lack of a better term, his level of interest rose somewhat. So we had a pretty big type search party sent out for Mr. McNabb at that point.
Why would the fact that Christopher McNabb ran from that car upon learning that his child's body or his child had been found, whether or not he learned that the child was dead or that the child was just found alive, why would that have heightened your suspicion of him?
Well, in my experience, innocent people don't run. So basically that just raises the level of suspicion that much more.
Did you learn where Mr. McNabb had run to?
We did.
And where was that?
He ran, got out of the car and ran up the hill behind the Marathon gas station right there at the intersection, and stayed in the woods the whole time until he came out later on that evening at the Chevron at 2:13.
In the meantime, while the search was still ongoing for Mr. McNabb, did you have Ms. Bell transported back to the sheriff's office for an interview about what had just occurred in the car?
I did.
And was that interview also recorded?
It was.
And was Ms. Bell again advised of her Miranda rights as she was the prior day on the 7th in the first interview?
She was.
And did she agree to waive those rights to speak with you?
She did.
Your Honor, I believe the Miranda waiver form has already been admitted into evidence in a previous hearing, and that would be, okay. That's right, you just re-advised her of her rights?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I would offer into evidence in State's Exhibit number 80 at this time and offer to play it for the jury.
Any objection?
No objection.
Be admitted without objection. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do y'all remember my earlier charge to you about a defendant giving a statement can be used against that defendant, not the other defendant? Is that correct? Okay, everybody's nodded yes.
Judge, can I note for the record before they start too that when I say no objection, I mean no objection based on previous rulings of the court and the agreements between the parties. There have been hearings regarding all these, and we've done the best we can to tailor these to the court's rulings and to agreements of the parties.
Okay. Be noted for the record.
I'll leave the door open for now, and I'll fix to come right back in here.
I need to ask you.
Oh, well, we all do. Okay. Be right back with you.
Who is that was speaking with Courtney Bell?
That would be Corporal Freeman. He was in for part of the interview also, actually most of the interview.
Love you, girl.
I love you.
For the record, I'm stopping at 34 seconds, Judge, just to cut out dead time and starting back at about 1:20.
Hey,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm cold.
Okay.
Someone, I'm gonna get my jacket out of Lauren's car.
All right.
Now I'm stopping at 1:47, and I'm gonna forward it to about 3:15. Starting at 3:14.
He's got a phone with him.
He does?
Y'all can look at him, there's a track phone reached out to him. But I think that it went dead. They had on that, but I think it had that. I could, if there's somewhere I can connect to Wi-Fi, I could call him on Facebook, it would alert me when he signs in, even if he's ever been active, it'll still notify me that he was recently active.
Just a little bit. He's gonna have to get your jacket. I'm gonna check my phone.
Mom came back, stuff like black ones are gone.
Oh,
I'm just freaking. The rain got to me.
just hold on to it for now. Are you gonna be here? I don't know, you gonna stay or? Yeah, since I got multiples. Mom is, the baby that's in there, and his mom is in the break room. I just left him there. When I get finished with the other lady in just a little bit, they're gonna swap out and watch the baby. But I guess, just in case we might need it. Okay, thank you. All right, Bale is your last name, right? And Courtney's your first name?
Yeah, well, that would be
C-O-R-T-N-E-Y. Okay. Middle name? Marie? Okay. What's your date of birth, Courtney? Okay. So, tell me what's going on now today. What's happening today?
We stayed with my cousin last night.
Your cousin is Craig? And him, Craig?
Yeah.
All right, that's Weatherford, right?
My mama came to my house this morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was,
So we went to her house,
when you say we,
me and Chris,
you and Chris, okay.
we went to her house. I got ready to do my makeup and my hair. I changed my clothes. He called. And he came up. I believe someone came into her room and took my baby. Because of all the people he had in and out there, that I was definitely trying to put him out there. I lied to y'all yesterday when you wanted to hit me and me. I have bruises on my back and my butt. I don't think bruises been around me for
When did he hit you?
I ain't beat you.
Mm-hmm.
Just whenever he gets ready to knock.
When's the last time you remember he hit you?
I think that was the last time was the really bad time. But I think maybe one other time after that.
Okay. Be good about when that happened. I'm gonna step out for a second. I'll be right back.
The other morning, when this happened, I fell in the knee. He pushed me back from the driveway. I called him.
That was at the trailer.
Yeah, that was while my kid was with my dad and grandparents. Remember I told y'all we had took after back this morning?
That was Friday.
Okay. I called my dad Thursday morning. So Thursday morning. Call her. Did I get my kids back Friday morning?
Yes.
Okay, so it was Thursday when I took her to the doctor. And went back down there to my dad and called him to come get me. I called him to come get me because he pushed me down
Mm-hmm.
in the driveway when I was trying to get the car that he was in. Do you need to know who he was with that morning? I mean, they're not gonna want to talk to y'all.
No. What I'm trying to figure
But
out is
I don't give a
when
damn what, you know.
what I'm trying to figure out right now is the day that he hit you last.
Thursday.
Thursday? And where did he hit you at?
In the house before he left out.
Okay. Did this about sit around the time? So Thursday in the house there.
In the side of the back of my head, but sometimes it went to my face. I think at the time, back of my head.
Where were y'all at in Thursday? In the living room couch.
Pushed open or kicked the table. And then he hit me and he stormed out. And he was trying to leave. I went to the car trying to leave with him. He unlocked his door. He was arguing with me for about 10 minutes about he gets out of the car and pushes me down the driveway.
Okay.
I was still in the driveway, and the lady in the park that has the white Charger
Okay.
with a camera in her door.
Okay.
I was still in the driveway and she drove by.
Okay. So that was on Thursday?
And they took off, yeah.
About what time?
That
Around 7 a.m. or p.m.? Okay, 7 a.m. So around 7 a.m. that morning, he hit you in the head in the house. And then he pushed you down out in the yard, which caused a problem again. Okay. So that's not from the fight that you had with that girl. She started off. I told him she had lied about the fact that he hit her and
And
beat her.
everybody knew it. I said,
Hmm?
and I tried to defend him against myself, but I know it's perfect. I never imagined that. He was good with him, I don't understand. I just saw something in his eyes when she was born. He didn't see that in Clarissa. And I could see the change in how he felt as a father. I don't, yeah. So, we get in the car. Like I said, my phone don't have a minute. We get text on it, but it has no minute in the dial.
You got in the car when we went
We
today?
got in the car to go for me to talk to Channel 2. To plead, I'm like, I want to bring my baby back to my home.
Where were you going to?
To my house.
Where were you coming from?
Riverside, my mom's
So your mom lives at Riverside? What's your mom's name?
house.
Andy? That's the same mom that you told me yesterday you don't have any relationship with?
Yes, she was born and she couldn't see me and talk to me. She needed to be my aunt. So I let her back into my life. And we went to her house and I got ready to come talk to you. And as we're getting in the car, I got a message on Facebook from Craig. I'm connected to Wi-Fi. I got messages on Facebook from Craig and Brianna. I thought Brianna first, and she was calling. And then she said they found her. And then I seen Craig, and he was just calling. And he said they found the baby. And I had some kind of hope. But when I said they found her, he started acting crazy. I'm like, he was going to jail and then I think he did this. I'm like, how is she's not still alive? I need to. They're everything. I gotta go. And phone, they had a page of it.
What's on your phone? What's the total?
617
Alright.
480
Okay. Where did he jump out at?
Marathon 36.
Right there at the intersection?
We was going through it, but it was stopped. He walked through the grass toward the bank parking lot. Rachel.
So, were y'all still sitting in front of the bank, red light headed?
Yeah,
Okay, so you were on that side?
yeah.
Sitting in front of it. Okay. Where would he be going up there? Does he know anybody at that one?
No, she's really working.
Okay, so there's nobody around that area that he might want to.
I mean, there's a couple people or places, but I mean, there's a lot of shots.
Right there in that area. That he would go to on foot. We'll get to that in just a minute, but I'm just trying to, kind of trying to figure out what his frame of mind was at the moment when he got that talk. So, what I heard you say was, he made the statement, they're gonna think I did this.
Without knowing if she was dead or alive.
Because all you said was they found her.
That's all I was told.
Yeah.
I called my Aunt Kim, I forgot this part. I called my Aunt Kim, and I asked her where my baby was. And she just kept putting it off and putting it off. And I had her on speaker. And I said, my baby
before or after he jumped out of the car?
Both, because I think I called her back.
The first time you called her?
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
There's so much going on.
I understand. I'm just trying to confirm, you said that she called you? You first?
I asked her, is my baby alive? A couple times, and she finally answered me and said, what do you think? She was on the side of the road all night. They found her in a backpack. But I'm not sure he was still in the car when she said that.
Okay. Had he already made the statement though at that point? They're gonna think I did this?
Yeah,
He made that
Yes.
before you ever called your aunt?
yeah.
Okay. That's an important fact, and I wanna be sure that
Yes, sir.
we're sure on that.
Yes, sir.
And he was saying, they're gonna think I did this.
That's why yesterday I looked at him in his eyes and I asked him, as a mama, I just have to ask you this. Did you do this? Did something happen to her and you're trying to cover this up? Did you do it? And we promised each other it was not. Okay. And then there was something funny when he said, I knew damn well Cortney didn't do it because she was asleep. But I didn't believe it. It's what that comment he made yesterday, I think, to me and Chris.
Crazy guy I talked to last night.
My cousin, he's always been my mother. When me and Chris met, and Chris became best friends too.
And that's Craig that was with y'all. He's the one we walked out to the laundry
My
lot.
check.
Yeah.
Always.
Did Chris make any other statements before he jumped out of there?
Yeah, but the car was chaotic.
Do you remember anything that was said?
Lauren was screaming really fucking loud.
Who was Norman?
The driver, the girl with the baby.
Okay. The one
That
was
was
in the
my
break room?
brother's baby's mom.
Okay. So she was screaming really loud?
Yeah.
Was he screaming? Talking about
I
Chris?
think he just got angry. I think I done that. I gotta get out of Marathon. Stop at Marathon.
Did you ask him, did he do it?
I was scared of him. And I wanted him to get out. I didn't want him beside me no more. I don't know.
Let's change the subject for just a minute. You mentioned a while ago a book bag. You said that you were told the baby was found in a book bag. And,
I believe my Kim said that.
okay. Did he own any kind of book bags?
He owns a couple different book bags.
Can you describe them?
One is black and it zips up kind of like that.
Uh-huh.
And it's got one shoulder belt on it.
Okay.
The other's a drawstring bag where it's blue on the front with a red Jordan symbol,
Uh-huh.
I believe. And then red on the other side with the opposite, you know.
Okay. Is there any other bags like that?
That's why I was asking what does the book bag look like. Because I honestly believe someone came into my home and took my child, especially last night when I found out this girl that I had named her name was Terri Garner. She was sitting at my kitchen table whispering the other night, and I made her leave because I don't like that kind of stuff in my house.
Mm-hmm.
And then she stole back cigarettes from my car, and she was waiting on whoever she had come outside. And after I realized they were gone the next morning, I called her, and I asked her, did she get them? She said, yeah, Shane gave me a pack of cigarettes, but I didn't know that they were hers, so I told her that they was, and I don't know who stole them, but I'm going to give them anyway. She was crying and everything, and I thought, since I made her mad, and then I found out that she supposedly sold 2 of her babies for dope money, I really thought that she had something to do with it. And being that her baby dad is Jamie Stevens, which is Missy's boyfriend that stays in the apartment at the top.
Is that Melissa?
Yeah, Melissa.
Same.
Her boyfriend is Jamie Stevens, and that's Terri Garner's baby daddy. And Missy and Jamie have been all in the house, and they knew where my children slept. And I mean, they knew everything. I honestly thought that that's what had happened.
Okay.
I kept wanting to go back real quick. And when I found out, the officer, that was talking to me when he had me sitting in the car, at home, he was writing out what the book I looked like. And then I asked about, I needed to know. I feel like he looked back there. And so when he did it, but it's not that I don't know. You know? And that's why I need to.
Yeah. Well, like I told you when I first started speaking to you earlier, I mean,
But
that's
then
her
someone
goal
else
is to
told me
find
that she
out.
was wrapped up in a hood.
You know, you're gonna hear 1,000 different stories
I know.
between now and next.
I've been reading so many things on Facebook and I haven't commented and I'm just been soaking them in and
Here's the thing, we're not putting any information out on Facebook, so everything you're reading is crap that
I mean, I didn't
is
read
coming out
this.
of
I was told this by different people at my home before y'all came up.
Well, I can't disclose to you the situation right now. Hopefully soon we can, but right now, there's facts that we've got to hold right now. And listen, I would love to just sit and tell you everything that I know right now, because I know it would give you some comfort. But for the integrity of finding justice for your baby, we've got to hold some information right now. But I promise you, the minute we can give it to you, you'll get it. Okay? And just trust us.